Happy holidays, all you monetized eyeballs out there, and welcome to Destroy All Clickbait, where we'll collectively put a stake in the shambling horror that was 2018, and hopefully take with it all the most nonsensical news and misleading hate reads for a pristine and sensible 2019. I'm Avi, and with me as always is Ing and Adam.
And
Hi,
I'm
everyone.
Ing. Season's greetings, everyone.
Indeed, and
Got all your
Happy
shopping done? You know, put all the giblets under the Krampus bush?
I literally celebrate none of the holidays that are for this time of year. Once Diwali is over, that is it. And I barely even celebrate that. I help my parents celebrate that.
Is Diwali sort of a big Hindu holiday, or is there another bigger
Well,
one?
so Navaratri is probably the biggest one, mostly because it happens multiple times throughout the year. But the one everybody knows is Diwali, because that's the one that's super fanciful, because everybody decorates their house in lights and all of that kind of stuff, and there's a bunch of rituals.
Right.
And then
If only we had something like that in our culture, where we decorated our house with lights.
yeah, well, our Christmas lights go up, around Halloween, and then they basically stay up, so that our house doesn't look weird in the winter.
Yeah,
Just
fair enough.
imagining your house having, the bridge to Enterprise there, and just someone going, activate cloaking, and just the Christmas lights go up.
Yeah, something like that.
Everyone here is a normal Christian household. We pass on to the next one. Who are these people who are looking at us? Okay, who knows?
Well, truth be told, our house is a lot more colorful than our neighbors' houses, who all have, the traditional white, icicle lights, and then we have, bright rainbow-colored lights. Which used to be a lot more common, but now everybody just does the white rainbow, does the white icicles, and it's kind of boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
The neighbors across the street are super nice, but, their house is really basic. It's kind of fascinating at this point.
Yeah, basic. Yeah, I miss the old multicolored lights. I don't know. I mean, it's quote tasteful, unquote, but I don't know.
I think the only thing that's still rainbow that you still might see, at least in terms of weird suburbs, is these projection lights that they now have that put lights all over the front of your house. Those are still rainbow.
Yeah, my friend's got those. Oh, I've seen much worse. I've seen people with giant, electric reindeers in their front yard and all kinds of nonsense that glow. All those things, there's my friend who I go to visit. He's got some people in his neighborhood. He calls one house the house that vomited Christmas, because it's always got, it's just an absolute nightmare of stuff, and it stays up till February.
Oh wow! Well, yeah, it takes a while for it to come down.
I mean, well, it would be work. It would be a lot of work to put it down, so I can't blame him that
so
much.
want to hear
Anyway.
my $1 billion idea?
No.
It would take a work to
Okay,
get
$1
some
billion
done. Some R&D was needed, but hear me out. Biodegradable Christmas lights.
Yes. I think a lot of things
but
need
you
to be
put them
biodegradable,
up.
frankly.
And that's it. Then you just wait for that, and then they come down on their own when they naturally are biodegraded and dissolve away.
So what?
That sounds
so
like
are
a
we
great
gonna
idea for electric wires.
harvest the bioluminescence from insects to do this?
Yeah, just trap some fireflies, and they'll just die in the cold naturally. It'll be great.
Technically, they're not so much lights as genetically engineered jellyfish, but
Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. Nothing could possibly go wrong. There's a setup for a 50s B sci-fi movie, and it's so plausible because everyone would buy those, right? I'm just not sure how you can do that, and with electric wires that I think a half-frayed electric wire is not really something you want on your...
Yeah.
Oh no, I said it was
Anyway.
a $1 billion idea, not that it was sound or sane in any way.
Make $1 billion and lose $1 billion
No, this
in
is
lawsuits.
a movie pass situation. We get the money and then we run before the other shoe drops.
Anyway, let's talk about some clickbait.
So where do we
got.
want to start? Because we got a pretty good array.
Well, the Twilight voted the worst movie of all time is an
Yeah, can we
interesting
just
line
say
to me.
wrong and
Or
move on?
okay, wrong. Move on. Probably not even, as somebody was saying, probably not even the worst movie released in the second half of
No.
that year that
Yeah.
came out.
No. Like I was telling Ing before, me and a mutual friend of ours, we actually snuck in to see this movie. We didn't pay for it. We saw another movie and snuck in to see this one. And it wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't a good movie. And this is also coming from like the standpoint of neither of us had read any of the books, so we had no basis for what the plot was other than what is like just like a general synopsis of it. So watching it was like you could tell they really tried to make it a good movie, and they just missed that mark. They just missed it.
I have not seen the movie and I've not read the books, but I've heard the theory. Somebody suggested that it was a bit of a Starship Troopers low-key attempt of parodying the book.
No.
Like,
no.
Okay, no?
Oh no, it is.
All right.
It is slavishly, faithfully, like beat for beat transcribed. And
I think that's part of the reason why, is that they didn't look at the source material and go, okay, these are the things that don't work in the source material, and we should just ignore them while we make the movie.
There's inherent things in it for some things that work and some don't, so you do have to tend to do some creative translation sometime.
And I think the first Twilight movie does that better than the first two movies for Harry Potter, because they don't do that at all. So I do think Twilight succeeded in that sense, but they didn't succeed in making a good movie. They just made a movie that wasn't bad.
No, it really didn't translate. It, like, one for one translated a bunch of stuff up.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and a bunch of stuff, including in a bunch of ways where it's like, that there's a whole separate language to cinema, a visual language there that all of the viewers understand, even if they're not, they can all understand it, even if they can't speak it.
Right. Like, usually they're subliminally aware mostly because they've seen other movies most of the time.
Yeah, I think we've talked about before that, like, technically everybody knows about the 180 rule, like, inherently, even if they don't know the term, the 180 rule.
Right, but if you show it to them, then they'll understand. It's like, oh, that's what that means, and that's why this segment felt uncomfortable, and I didn't know why.
Right.
Well, somebody was what always struck me with Harry Potter, which and I remember when Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, the first Harry Potter and the first Lord of the Rings came out within months of each other, and a lot of people commented the general sense was Lord of the Rings was way more successful because it made the changes it needed to the medium. Harry Potter was very slavishly faithful to the book, and the one that really stuck out for me in Harry Potter was where they have to cross the different obstacles in the climax to get to the final thing. And then they had to play a game of chess to get there. And it was like, that's not, even though they're live action pieces and they're like, it's all dramatic, it does not work to have Ron dramatically playing a chess game to get across like it just kills the momentum of that whole sequence. Dead. Because they should have found something completely different for him to
Here's the thing, I saw that as also as a criticism in the book. Of basically them pointing out, unless you're really familiar with the game or sport in question, and can make a play-by-play of it seem really interesting, you want to avoid stuff like that sort of things being high stakes.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, otherwise it gets to the point where it's like they played a game and he won.
Like, thinking about it, the way it was in the book and the way they did to portray it in the movie is that they had to play a whole game of Wizard's Chest rather than, like, be given a preset board that has the various figures in a certain position, and they have to figure out, from this position, how do we win the game? Like, that would be a better way of translating that.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, because you can't stop the action to play a chess game, but you can't just write, and then he played chess and won. Like that, it's a hard thing to kind of, I mean, you could do it in theory, but I get the feeling that J.K. Rowling's not a big chess player anyway, so she just sort of thought that was a cool thing to put in.
Especially since, like, wizard's chess never comes up again in any of the other books. Like, it's in the first book, it does that bit, and then it's never mentioned again.
And although, well, you could argue that, for instance, Alice Through the Looking Glass, the whole story is actually based on a chess problem, as you may or may not know. And the point, and if a pawn gets to the other end of the board, they become a queen, which is what Alice is trying to do in the story. So, yeah, you know, you can kind of do that to an extent. That's a much better example of that, I think. Another one that, we're really off topic here.
Because that never happens.
Another one that, yeah, I know, we're usually so tightly focused in these. But the one that always bugs me a bit is poker. I mean, there are a few, I think Rounders was pretty good. Not that I'm a big expert on poker or anything, but like the movie Maverick, which I generally enjoy, with Mel Gibson, which makes it, thinking about it, I'm like, oh, well, I won't be able to enjoy that anymore. But it was the big poker game at the end and then he magically pulls an ace and gets a royal flush. And it's just like, it's the biggest Hollywood load of horseshit. There's a comic by Kazu Kabayushi, the guy who did the Flight anthologies, called Daisy Cutter with a K. It was kind of a steampunk western. And it opens, there's an early scene where she's playing poker, and it's really well done, because it's not about, oh, she'll pull a royal flush and it'll be really dramatic. It's like, no, she actually plays it smartly in a way that, and it plays out with an interesting like twist where it's like, everyone was focused on the queen, but I managed to get 3 2s or whatever. Like, it's based on the river, and like clearly he knew the rules of poker to write it that way in a way that was actually,
you know what also did poker well for it being sort of reoccurring motif? Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, but that's not about
it's about the social dynamics instead.
Right, but there are a few times when the game or the hands involved were important to the plot or tied into it somehow, and none of it stood out because it still was genuinely an actual round of poker.
Right, exactly.
Right, but it wasn't. But it's never about, like, the dramatic stakes are never based on who's going to win this round of poker, right? Like, there's never a real stake in who's going to win.
The closest one was when Will Riker was playing against his double clone. And again, it didn't matter who won there. The whole point is that this is a person who, when he's doubled, the first instinct of each double is to be as huge an asshole to the other as possible. And to try to one-up and establish dominance over the other.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that when you portray a game like poker, and poker's a very cinematic game because it is, as you say, about the social dynamics. But the other one is Casino Royale. I love Casino Royale, but the poker game in that is really stupid. And just like, it's the most simplistic baby plays poker version of that game, which is still kind of, and we will talk about this on my other podcast, by the way, because we're doing a James Bond episode. But it's actually even still better than the book, because in the book it was Baccarat, which is 100% just
it's
a game
high card, low card,
pure
right?
luck. Like, I'm not even sure, but it's very much.
I
based
played it
on,
before
like,
with my family.
luck.
It's a very strange game.
Yeah, there's some there's a tiny bit of skill, but not a lot. And changing it to poker made so much more sense, because that is an actual game of skill. So, in this one, it was just like, in the book, it's just, James Bond, I hope you're lucky enough to win. It's like, you're our best player. It's like, yeah, but it's such a game of luck. And of course he gets lucky because he's the star of the movie,
he's fucking basically. James Bond.
Anyway. Right. So again, which is
now
a thing
for writing advice, if it depends on someone getting absurdly lucky like that, you need to make it that it was actually cutting and they cheated. Right?
Yeah.
We're all in agreement that has to be the thing, that Lando had to have the ace up his sleeve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, you know what's funny? You're saying that. It's like, yeah, in that context, it makes total sense for the hero to cheat, because who cares? They're trying to save lives or whatever the stakes are. And yet, in the James Bond novels, there's actually a recurring motif of the bad guys cheat, but James Bond always plays fair, and it's always like, and literally
Isn't the plan in Casino Royale that they're trying to bankrupt this guy?
Yes,
this is actually the British intelligence plan. We're gonna exploit this guy's gambling addiction to bankrupt him. Oh, great! So we're gonna be really cheating, and like everyone just suddenly turns into a pug and tilts their head.
Yeah. It's
that would be ungentlemanly.
That's absolutely what it is. It's that idea of, well, that's, I may be a violent misogynist, but I would never cheat at cards. And in fact, there's a character in Moonraker, Hugo Drax. He's actually this character who even James Bond reveres and thinks is a great guy, and everyone thinks he's a hero, not knowing that he's a secret supervillain. And the reason they start to catch on to him is that he's cheating at cards. And that's what M says, hey, check this guy out. Why is he cheating at cards? Which, to be fair, is like, well, he's rich. Why would he have to cheat at cards? But that's a sign there's something wrong with this guy.
But like we're back in ancient Athens, into which it's presumed that your luck was the favor from the gods, and thus you're of low virtue with bad luck?
Yeah, pretty much. That would definitely tie into the general theme of James Bond in general, for sure. Anyway, but yeah, no, it's just, in terms of dramatizing, games, it can be tricky, for sure. Only temporarily related, but if you've ever read the Culture novels,
yes.
Do you know about those?
I've read a few, and didn't like one, though I liked a lot of the ideas, and really liked another.
Yeah, there's one of them is called literally the Player of Games, and the big game that they're playing for the stakes. Like there's a society that bases everything on who can win this giant epic game every decade or whatever, and for all intents and purposes, your social standing is reflected by how well you do in the game. So they literally send the heroes of the culture, who are essentially, the Star Trek Federation, send someone to go down and play the game in order to sort of reform the society, because it's a very cruel, unjust society. But if they can send one of their guys to win, he can help reform the society. But the game is played. One of the things that's done is you play the game on an environment that's somehow deteriorating or just being destroyed. So you have to they literally play it on a planet where a wildfire is burning across the planet, and part of the game is how long you can stay in before running for the exits. Basically, that is literally one of the part of the stakes is whoever can sit there the longest before, and if you stay in too long, you are going to die because the wildfire is going to sweep in. But if you have just enough nerve to stay longer than anyone else, that's not the only thing to the game, but that's, that ends the game, and if you're up when that happens, then you win the game. So that was kind of a cool idea as well. Anyway, but that's a good way to make the stakes significant for a game, basically, in a story. Anyway. Yeah, they're cool books. They're pretty cool. I feel like they're a reaction to Star Trek in some ways, because it's kind of it's also a utopian sort of future star-spanning society where people are nice. Everyone is trans, basically.
Okay.
And the hero of the player of games is considered a weirdo because he's never changed his gender. Everyone else goes through gender change at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone has drugs implanted in their bloodstream so they can get high whenever they feel like it. There's all kinds of weird stuff like that.
There's a ton of high concept
really cool.
Transhumanism and futurism in it.
Yeah, it's a neat series.
Interesting.
Anyway, let's move on to another bit of clickbait. Maybe you guys can explain, which I didn't even attempt to make sense of. Avi, you put this one about Alfonso Ribeiro sues Fortnite over the Carlton dance.
Finally, a good reason to be mad about Fortnite dances.
Okay, so Fortnite it's an online multiplayer game, and depending on which mode you play in will depend on what you do. The main mode that most people play in is the Battle Royale mode, which is where 100 players basically drop into the same place, and they basically all have to take each other out and be the last one standing.
They have to Hunger Games each other.
They have to do it on a planet where a wildfire is raging.
I mean, you say that, but I believe the game does have a shrinking map, so yeah, that's actually a good analogy.
There are other aspects to it, including a building aspect, a crafting aspect, because this game was actually created in the midst of the Minecraft craze. So they basically wanted to build something that was similar to Minecraft but different. so the original game that the game is based off of is much more crafting influenced, and then they did this Battle Royale mode just as a side thing for free, and that's basically what everybody plays now. The way they earn most of their money for the game is through mostly cosmetic things, so you can customize your character, basically. And one of the things you can do is do a dance emote. And so they have various dances that they've graphed on, so that way you can make your character dance. I believe there is a specific Fortnite original one that you'll see all of the kids do, and that's what the older folks are making fun of the kids for, and it's just kind of like, we had the caramel dance, and we have no right to judge any of that.
The Macarena was done at weddings.
Exactly.
Back in the house.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, let the kids do their dumb Fortnite dance. It's actually a pretty complicated dance to do, so it's fine. It's fine. Oh, and apparently it also featured Thanos at one point, so there's a gif of Thanos dabbing, which none of you have to see unless you Google it.
There is also a great gif of Thanos twerking.
Please don't post that. But in any case, so one of the things you can do is do dance emotes, and then they have a variety of dance emotes, and apparently they decided to add one that is the Carlton dance. And so if you've ever watched the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know that Carlton has a very specific dance he does, and it's very goofy, and it is iconic. It is extremely iconic. And so they included it in this game, and it's apparently called Fresh.
So, here's where it gets interesting. Dance steps are, by U.S. law, legally copyrightable material.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, and Fortnite has been getting some trouble because a lot of their dances are based on pop culture things that they apparently did not realize that you kind of do actually have to get permission to use some of those.
Yeah.
Because, yes, this very much can be copyrighted material. Like, a lot of Michael Jackson's dance steps were actually copyrighted to Michael Jackson.
Right.
As, effectively as trade secret, exclusive, it's his proprietary content and information.
Right. I think Ribeiro is in the process of copywriting it. So it's actually, he's in the process of copywriting it.
Yeah.
So it's not currently copywritten, but once it is, they basically can't do anything without paying dues to him. And according to the article, there's a rapper by the name of 2 Milli who's also filed a lawsuit against Epic Games, who is the creator of Fortnite, for the same thing, where they also have an iconic dance that he created as an emote, and he's also in the process of copywriting his dance move. So...
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because you'd think copyright is basically just being able, like, you claim copyright and you've got it. I understood, and you can prove, I created this. As long as you can prove you can create it, I think copyright is retroactive, which obviously he can, because it was part of the TV show. So I don't understand, like, why there would be anything to it other than just saying, okay, I'm copywriting this. Boom, you're copyrighted.
Now the issue.
Anyway,
hey, here's a chance where we literally get to play devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. And it's actually original intended meaning and context. Fortnite is...
We're arguing for the sainthood of Carlton on Fresh Prince of
Fortnite's legal argument is largely going to be that he did not protect or defend the copyright for so long that it has entered the popular culture and is effectively fair use.
Right.
And
which
you can
or
the argument that it has become so ubiquitous that it is impossible or unreasonable to expect it to be copywritten, as was the actual case filed against the person who had copywritten "Happy Birthday to You."
Right. which is why various TV shows and movies, whenever there's a birthday, they did not sing that song. It's now currently in public domain, so it can be used now, but for so long, now it is.
There was indeed a court case that said, basically ruled that it was so ubiquitous that it cannot be copywritten.
Interesting, because I knew that when I was a kid, that was one of the first things I heard was, you can't use Happy Birthday to You in a movie anymore without paying royalties to these people from, like, the grandchildren of people who wrote the song in the 30s, which is where it starts to get a little ridiculous, obviously. I'm in favor of paying the creators for their creation, obviously, but when it's the great-grandchildren of the creators and they haven't done anything and they're still raking in the royalties, that's where I start to go, okay, make it public domain.
Right, then that's the whole thing when it comes to, like, generational estates and stuff like that, and that whole business. So, and that's a whole thing for another time, but...
This is also why Adobe very much does not want you to use Photoshop as a verb.
Right.
And why Band-Aid brand adhesive bandages do not want you to refer to all adhesive bandages as Band-Aids.
Also Velcro. Velcro does not want you to call that Velcro. They want you to...
And Xerox, which actually won. Nobody calls it a Xerox. They call
or
it
a copy machine,
that was actually a thing for a while.
Which ironically was possibly one of the worst victories they ever had, because it also killed their domination and brand recognition in the market.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about trademark, because what we're actually talking about is trademark, is that in some senses you do want to protect your trademark, but in other senses you actually kind of don't want to protect your trademark. This is part of the reason why the Vlogbrothers don't want to trademark or copyright DFTBA, Don't Forget to Be Awesome, is because there's so much fan-made merchandise of DFTBA that they don't want to have to protect against all of that. But on the other hand, they also recognize that there are a lot of, like, big name brand companies that are also doing DFTBA for the money aspect. Right. So it's just kind of like, if you want DFTBA and it's not coming from the Vlogbrothers directly, go into Etsy and buy it from them rather than going to, like, Walmart and buying a DFTBA thing.
Well, that's why I've always found it silly when corporations get really hardcore about defending copyrights from, like, fans and little... It's like, that is helping you. That's
Except,
great advertising
as established,
for
you need to actually have the legal precedents that you have attempted to defend your copyright.
Yeah.
For such cases as, like, the Carlton dance.
Right.
Because it now can be used as a defense. Like
that he never has.
That
quote
he
unquote.
has... Right. That he never has defended it, and that it is, like, attempt to point to other places where it's been replicated and insist that, hey, this was allowed. Yeah. He's not.
I'm actually not sure if it has been replicated anywhere, now that I think about it, because the first thing I think of is actually the Overwatch dance emotes. Right. And they do have one that references the Fresh Prince, but they don't have the Carlton dance. They have a move that Will Smith did in a single episode. And I don't know if they contacted Will Smith if they could use it.
Also, I think Will Smith's dance was a homage to another musician, I believe.
Okay, so
it is more of a generic dance step rather than the distinct one. And if you look, Overwatch does apparently either uses very generic or public domain traditional ones.
Right.
Or I think some that they actually have gotten permission from, such as the Voltron rap battle dance that Diva does.
That they use for Diva.
Yes.
Because the Will Smith dance is used for Junkrat, and I was surprised that they didn't use the Carlton dance for Roadhog.
Yeah.
Roadhog has a different one, and I was surprised that they didn't do that because they're a pair. But like seeing this, I now understand why that may have not have happened, and they did something else.
Roadhog's thing is also the bring it around town sort of hula move.
Yeah.
And as an interesting Easter egg, there is a way that if you sync the two of them dancing side by side, that the dances sync up for them to high-five each other.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So in other words, Overwatch is doing their dance emotes the correct way, and Epic Games is not really doing it the correct way, mostly because they're not asking the people who invented these dances if they can use them.
This is also one that I would give a pass on malicious intent, because it is a fairly obscure thing that you wouldn't realize, and also in many other senses doing a dance or physical reference to somebody else would be accepted as homage, parody, or fair use.
The only thing I wonder is that the way that the complaint reads is that Epic does their coding by taking still frames of the source material. So I'm wondering if they are actually coding this by overlaying the rig on top of the dance itself and doing it that way, instead of like referencing it, like doing it side by side, like if they're actually doing it on top.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think that would be a damning thing against them.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they're actually doing it on top, that is much more malicious than if they're doing it side by side. Because one is basically rotoscoping, which is technically okay, but it's if you don't have permission from the original source to do that, because you're not developing what you're rotoscoping off of, then it's definitely illegal.
And I mean,
because they also mention Gangnam Style, that dance, the Ride the Pony dance. So if they did it that way...
Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style is a whole other thing.
It's Gangnam Style. I said it correctly. But, yeah.
Oh, is it?
It's Gangnam.
Right,
anyway,
which is owned by the Korean musician Psy.
Right, exactly. So if they did that one the way I said, and they've done these other ones that way, then it is actually extremely bad, because they did not create the original source material.
What?
In other words, if they didn't
have Gangnam Style dance,
that they said it, Epic, in the complaint, it actually says, for example, upon information and belief, Epic coded Ride the Pony emote frame by frame from Gangnam Style dance made famous by Korean entertainer Psy. The Ride the Pony emote and Psy's dance are identical in every respect.
Now, that's interesting, because I had heard the rumor there that people had been asking for something like that in some of Blizzard, who does like Overwatch stuff, and the actual reply was that Gangnam Style is copyrighted and that they cannot infringe on Psy's trademark of it. So that's interesting to me, because that was previously, I think, used as an explicit example of
I'm trying to remember
someone's flavor you can't chomp.
So there's two Battle Royale games. There's Fortnite, and then there's the other one that I can't remember right now. One of them is made by a Korean...
Which is a great sign for that game, huh?
I know. If I see the name, I'll know what it is. I'll know
background.
Yeah, that's it. But one of them is owned by a Korean company. So if it's Epic Games that's owned by a Korean company, that's probably why they were able to use Psy's Gangnam Style dance. So, because they were probably able to ask him directly in order to use it. But that's not necessarily the case for the Carlton dance and for the Millie Rock dance. So... because the only way that they could technically get around this is if they, in fact, hired professional dancers to mimic the dances that they can then rotoscope off of.
Yes.
Like, if they can prove that's how they made these, then that would make sense. But if the people filing the lawsuit can prove, no, they actually did it over our footage instead of their own made footage.
And then they might still argue that that's transformative enough to be fair use, so...
Right.
This randomly became a legal podcast with no lawyers to provide actual expertise.
I mean, I took 2 law classes, it's fine.
We should be charging $200 an hour.
I took business law and employment law. I totally know what I'm talking about.
Indeed. Okay, well, let's move on then from the legal jargon. I'm sure that's getting pared down.
We need to switch tracks. We were briefly maybe almost educational for a moment.
Alright, so let's talk about how hot dog is a taco. And tacos are sandwiches. So ergo, a hot dog is a sandwich. End of story.
Well, actually, Ing said he had a bit he wanted to
well,
do,
you can't introduce it as this is just Ing being a bit.
Okay. All right. Well, then cut that out. Never mind. Okay. So we'll talk about hot dog being a taco. Is a hot dog a taco? Am hot dog
Well, let's see. This is the title of the article. A hot dog is a taco. A steak is a salad. A Pop-Tart is a calzone. Let the cube rule explain. Oh my god, this person is saying that the hot dog is not a sandwich. But tacos are sandwiches. You can't tell me otherwise. A hot dog is a taco and a taco is a sandwich. End of story.
Ridiculous. That's like just a Twitter argument in web form. The Spider-Verse thing. Now, we have to tread carefully here, both for viewers and myself, because I have not seen
it
yet.
either.
I've seen it. You're both going to love it. It is legit groundbreaking.
That is what I have heard.
Yeah, everyone's saying that.
That is what I have heard.
So, yeah. No. Okay, so I almost don't want to read the article. How spoilery is the article?
I can get around any spoilers.
Okay, so, well, summarize it for us.
Please.
Then.
So I found it. This is from, since I said I would actually hit around, Screen Rant by Andrew Dice on the 16th, saying, yes, Spider-Verse's old Peter is the true Spider-Man, and it makes an argument that via Easter eggs you can identify one of the men Spider present in the movie as being from the 616 universe, and thus the, air quote, true Spider-Man. This has also caused some contention because it's actually driven home in the movie quite often that no universe's incarnation of Spider-Man is any less valid or true than any others. In fact, the phrase, anyone can be Spider-Man, is actually used kind of as a motto of the movie.
Yeah. Okay, so basically what it sounds like is that the article is trying to say something about, oh, but which is the Spider-Man we know from the 616 universe, and which one is, and the article turned it into, well, it's the white guy who's the real Spider-Man,
now the article does point out, blah, 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 that it's not the true one, but saying that this is the 616 one, which has always been referred to as the true one. Right. However, let me, first, some disclosures. Let me make it clear. This is a completely sort of bullshit nerd no prize argument that is that is completely pointless and the worst of pedantic. That said, if we are going to go this way, I'm going to bring out all the guns to win the argument, because when you fuck a goat, you might as well bust both nuts.
Well put, my friend. Sorry, before you start, we should clarify. 616 is the number of the Marvel Universe that's supposed to be, quote,
in the comics.
Marvel Universe.
Yeah, it's the mainline universe, basically.
They acknowledge that there are other universes, and I believe it was actually Alan Moore, of all people, even though he's barely written for Marvel, but in one of his little stories, he had them mention that the Marvel Universe that we know is ranked as number 616 in the multiverse for people who keep track of those things. So 616 refers to the Marvel Universe as we know it, and when there's alternate universes, they're not 616.
Okay.
Continue
now,
what you were saying. Yes.
Here's now, their argument is that it identifies the Jake Johnson version of Spider-Man as his home dimension being 616. One of the device that causes the whole intergalactic space wedgie universes to overlap each other identifies his designation as 616. That's the crux of the argument. Now, here's my argument for if we're going into huge fan wank, why that's still wrong.
Okay.
One, there's no evidence that actually this Peter Parker lines up exactly with the comic continuity, which is fine.
Right.
Two, unless it is said by a watcher, the 616 designation is just somebody's count and not an actual objective context. 616 is the watcher, and beings like that's ranking and numerical system for it. Now, this device was made by mortal people of science, Earthlings.
Right.
Now, would they designate their universe 8-1 or anything. No, their universe is going to be Universe 1, and then they will count from everyone out there.
Or they might use 0, and then the first one they find is 1. That's the other way they might do it.
Right. The Collider just counted Jake Johnson's universe as being 616 by their count.
Right.
Now, it is a reference to the 616 universe in the comic to throw that number in there, even as an Easter egg, but it doesn't prove anything.
Right. Okay.
Because I thought that the new Spider-Man video game, that Peter is supposed to be this Peter. Right? Or did I read that incorrectly?
I cannot comment enough to know.
Because I know that they did do something that links the video game Peter that just came out for the PlayStation 4 to the continuity of Into the Spider-Verse. So that video game and this movie are connected. But I don't know if it's specifically the Peter that is the Peter that we mostly see in the movie or not. That's the only thing. So.
Yeah. Well, now at this point, there are multiple versions of 616, right?
Yeah.
Like, at this point, there's the video game, there's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has never explicitly been called the 616 universe, but I think we're supposed to think of it as the 616 universe.
It actually has some designation in one of the Marvel source books.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Ones that are all of the ones shown in any media are a different universe from each other.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense, but have they ever acknowledged that in the movies themselves? I mean, I guess they haven't really done alternate universes.
The movies
besides this one.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, yes, there's a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man universe, there's a Andrew Garfield, but really it was originally designated for, like, alternate universes that are really weird from each other, like presumably all the ones in Spider-Verse, like, say, Spider-Ham, who I do know about.
Well, technically,
so that would be the universe where everyone's
Spider-Gwen should also have her own universe because her timeline is different. And then obviously as a result of this movie, we know that Miles has a different timeline as well, so his is also different.
Oh, right. The other...
Yeah, Miles Morales has always been explicitly not 616, because he was born originally in the Ultimate Universe, which was done as sort of an attempt to do a new continuity for
Or,
Marvel,
as we have to say
failed,
now,
but the one...
Miles Morales was in the Ultimate Universe.
Right.
Right, because now we have a movie version of it as well. And I do like the idea that, TV and movie spin-offs get their own universe and stuff.
Right.
That does make sense.
And
but it was originally meant to be, this is a really weird universe where, like, they wear hats on their hands and hamburgers eat people. Like, that's, it's not just slightly different Spider-Man. It's something radically different.
No, but it is now explicitly said that there's basically numerous ones, and the difference between them may be slight, but it's still there.
So they are doing the Trousers of Time, then.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Well, I'm fascinated by this because DC is really the company that's known for creating alternate universe, and they really went to town over the years with alternate universes, with, like, the Earth 3, which is where the bad guys are heroes and the heroes are villains. And, things like the Marvel, the Captain Marvel family would have their own universe, but then they also kind of crossed over, and all these different alternate universes, but they're always, like, as wild and creative as possible. Marvel's alternate universe is just kind of built up because in a comic book universe you always have a multiverse. But they had, like, I know that there's one that they've referenced where apparently there was I think all the What If Marvel comics that they did, where it was like, what if this happened? Each of those has its own universe, literally, in the Marvel continuity. So, and there's definitely one, which I know from the Dan Slott's run on She-Hulk. That was actually the time when I was most into Marvel continuity, was when I was reading that. And he mentioned that the universe where there's only one superhero in the entire universe, and it's Reed Richards, but he got Ben Grimm's powers via
Oh my god.
But no one else in that universe has superpowers. And they all discovered that if they came to visit the 616 universe, they would become like that superhero, basically. So people were saying, I could buy a vacation in the Marvel 616, and he was using that to explain all the continuity errors of Marvel over the years, that there would be alternate reality versions from other universes vacationing
in 616, and that's why 616 is so weird.
And that's why, if there's a problem with the continuity, it's because it's one of these dimensional visitors who came over.
I feel like there's worse ways to explain that.
Yeah, that's fun.
The original Marvel letters to the editor line used to have a concept called the No Prize, to which they basically said that mistakes are going to happen, but if a fan can come up with a justification for them, it will be highlighted in the forum and be awarded the No Prize.
Okay. Why is it called the No Prize?
Because it's technically no prize.
Oh.
Because it's Stan Lee's style of humor of just being like, oh, great, thanks. It's like blowing a raspberry out. Also kind of...
Well, I think it's more good-hearted that it's like, this isn't a problem that needed solving, but good job.
But thanks.
Yeah.
Ha! Yeah. I wasn't aware this was a mystery that needed unraveling, but you solved it.
Right. It became sort of a, oh, you wacky... It was a raspberry that became an affectionate, and then literally a badge of honor. That if you got a no prize, basically. So it's the whole Marvel back in the 60s had kind of a Mad Magazine concept to it in a way that you wouldn't recognize as much anymore. But Stan always definitely took it not seriously at all, and it had that same sort of Borscht Belt humor to everything.
Well, that's also probably why he worked so well as an editor. So.
Right.
So there's also that.
Yes, I want to point out something Vampiric Yoda pointed out that there's in the chat that 52 DC famously now has 52 universes. They made a big thing out of that. But one thing that was actually mentioned in I believe Multiversity by Grant Morrison, which is the idea, which of course, and as always he always comes up with the best solutions to things. But he pointed out that what he did was acknowledge that there's more than one multiverse. So he introduced the concept of Multiverse 2, not just Earth 2, but Multiverse 2. So you can actually have more than 52 universes in the DC universe. Anyway,
and Batman Metal also introduced the concept of the Dark Multiverse, which is made up of bad timelines that should not exist because the events that cause them are so far-fetched as to be statistical impossibilities. So they are universes that should have collapsed upon themselves.
But didn't.
Due to incoherence, but are being kept alive due to basically demonic activity. Which is how you have a universe where somehow Batman became the Joker.
Right.
Huh.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't read Metal. I've heard very wide variety of things about Metal. Some people seem to think it's good. Some people seem to think it's terrible.
See, this is the reason why people don't want to get into comics. Because there's just so much, and it's impossible to read it.
Well, that's why I always go back to. That's what's crazy about Spider-Verse to me. It's like DC in the 80s got rid of their multiverse because they thought it would be too confusing for new viewers and people wouldn't get into it, and it would, so they had to collapse it down to one universe and get rid of it.
Oh, right, and that was Crisis,
and
right?
Now we have a major... Right, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which they got rid of their multiverse, which they did eventually bring back, because it was a good idea. I don't think it was that complex and hard to understand. We now have a movie in theaters, which is the number one movie in theaters, is about the concept of a multiverse and parallel realities, and everyone loves it. And it's basically exactly what DC said, no, we can't do this anymore because it's too confusing. And it's now the source of, now everyone's going to be into multiple realities. So comics were, way ahead of the curve, and they decided, we're too nerdy.
And let me tell you, there were real young kids at the showing I went to, and they were all following it.
Of course they were.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. And so one of my favorite cartoons from, the early, the latter half of, or the early 2000s, is Phineas and Ferb. And part of the reason why it was so hard for the creators of that show to get that show made is because they were constantly told by executives, this show is too complicated. You have too many storylines going on at once in a 15-minute episode. They were told that constantly. And then they did finally get their show made, and they had so many kids who loved the fact that there were multiple storylines within an episode. So it's just kind of you need to give kids a little bit more credit.
There was someone I can't remember who said it, but it was a writer who said, I think it was Terry Pratchett actually. He said, I like to make it simple enough for the adults, but complicated enough for the children to understand. That was a joke. And then the other thing about the multiverse, I realized Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was a big DC event where they collapsed all the universes into one universe to make it, quote, simpler, and that actually created much more confusing and nonsensical stuff than just keeping the multiverse. For instance, characters like Power Girl, who people liked, suddenly her backstory had to change because the whole idea was she was Supergirl from an alternate reality who just adopted a different super. So now you have Supergirl and Power Girl hanging out. So what do you do with Power Girl? And they changed her origin like 15 times, and nobody can make heads or tails.
And then meanwhile, when the New 52 happened, they kill off Donna Troy because they said, "Oh, Donna Troy's backstory is so convoluted and complex because there's like 15 million of them, so we're just going to get rid of her character." So it's just kind of like, or you could just keep everything the same and just make it easier for the people who want to get into it to know where exactly they should be getting into it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what it is. Yeah, just don't, if it's something, because there are a few bits that are really weird and convoluted, but just don't get into them. Just leave them aside. And now we've got like the CW DC universe, which has multiple characters crossing over from multiple universes, and it's like it's not that hard to follow if you just don't keep adding like quote
exactly. Because I think in Arrowverse, Green Arrow, Flash, and I think Black Lightning are all within the same universe, and it's only Supergirl who is in a different continuity.
No, actually, I think Black Lightning...
No, in Black Lightning, they mentioned the fact that those two other cities have superheroes. Because I have watched some of the first season, so they do actually mention those two other cities by name and say that these two other cities have heroes, and those heroes are complimented and rewarded, and so why is Black Lightning treated like a villain?
We made a joke and everything about the complexity of that.
Yeah.
But also by how we're talking... and how much we can just talk about it and have fun talking about it, and of what I saw from the kids in the theater, this sort of thing actually really captures people and children's imaginations, because so much I heard from the kids going with their parents was... because a lot of them came with parents who were fans of Spider-Man to begin with, apparently, I'm getting from the context clues, is wanting to know more about characters that they saw there.
Right. Which makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Which gives that, comics really undersold people, that it's like, if something catches the interest, they then do want, kind of like, almost the treasure hunting aspect of finding out more stuff about that character.
Right, and thankfully, if it's Miles, Miles has a clear starting off point.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be that hard to get into Miles.
I could list some that I heard some kids asking about because it really, captured them, but it might be spoilery.
Yeah. Yeah, don't spoil. But I know that Marvel is definitely missing a bet if they don't put the Spider-Ham comics into...
Let me just say one of the other things, like I mentioned that Spider-Verse breaks a ton of rules of what you're not supposed to do with these sort of movies, and one of them is that they let the setting just be a superhero setting.
Okay.
Yeah, and elements and characters of it will be things that will be readily recognizable by comics fans, but to non-fans, they are just very neat, exotic things establishing this world.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's what drives me crazy. With superhero media, they always go, we've got to start from scratch and start from our world and then slowly build up a superhero character. It's like, no, you can just throw them into a crazy superhero universe. People get it. They've always got it. Most superhero media didn't even bother, Batman 66 does not bother to explain the origin of Batman. I mean, there's a throwaway line in the first episode about why he's Batman. Spider-Man cartoons, I don't think they ever did an episode. Maybe they did the pilot.
It's not the pilot, but I don't think it's... Okay, I only list it because in the 90s Spider-Man thing, the framing way that they did it is very neat, in that it is actually Peter Parker recounting the story to an orphan that he got a fan letter from Spider-Man about.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And that
because I mean, technically, the opening sequence kind of shows it.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah. Right. You can always, with a superhero, flash back to their origin. You do not need to start with their origin, unless.
And to bring up Tom Holland again, it's kind of the reason why some people like his, because they aren't doing that with him for obvious reason. Because we've literally had 2 sets of Spider-Man movies that have done it, so we don't need another one.
Yeah, we've seen that. And Spider-Man has probably the best origin of any superhero that makes a good story in and of itself. And we still don't need to see it 300 times. Just with Superman.
Not to give any spoilers to Spider-Verse, but they do a very fun thing with how to do the origin of Spider-Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on. I'm going to see it this weekend, and it'll be fun, and it's great. So let's leave that before we get into spoiler stuff for me and for anyone who hasn't seen it. So let's jump to the last one, which has got to be Jack Dorsey and Azalea Banks.
Well, actually, before we get into that, I have an important announcement.
Yes.
We are, of course, now up with our proper RSS feed.
Yes.
Yep. So, and as we are now a podcast that's available on podcast networks, we naturally now have paid sponsorship.
Yay!
So, to allow me to just read out that this week's Destroy All Clickbait is sponsored by Masper Caskets. Masper Casket, the most comfortable foam-filled memory coffins available. How many times have you thought, sure, I'd love to die, but these dang-ass pine boxes look so uncomfortable? What if I wake up still alive, and now not only am I buried in my grave, but it's real lumpy? Worry no more. With Masper Casket's new 30-day trial period, they'll ship you a coffin straight to you, and if you're not satisfied in any way, you can send it back risk-free. That's Masper Caskets. Don't just rest in peace, rest in comfort.
Oh my god.
Thank you, Master Caskets. Dying was painful, but eternity doesn't have to be. Alright, so the crazy news story that just came out in the last day or two, which has been all over Twitter, and of course you've no doubt heard about it, which is this utterly bewildering headline that I still, and you know what, I've read the article, there are still so many questions I have about this, which is that Jack Dorsey, and this headline just gets weirder and weirder, Jack Dorsey, who is the CEO of Twitter.
And who looks like a Muppet version of himself.
Somehow, yes, that is true, he sent an envelope of his beard hair, already weird, to Azalea Banks, even weirder, so she could craft an amulet to protect him from ISIS.
How do you know that this amulet works? Well, I ask you, do you see any ISIS around?
Do you see ISIS? No.
Yes. It's the rock that protects you from tigers, and the amulet that protects you from ISIS. That's very true. Now, my first question, there are many avenues in which you would ask questions about this. My first question would be, why Azalea Banks specifically? I don't know much about her. Is she known for practicing
because
witchcraft?
Sending it to Taylor Swift would just be absurd.
Well, truth be told, Taylor Swift isn't even a rapper, so it's like, you have to send it to a rapper, apparently.
It's not the rap aspect.
Look, I think if rappers had the inherent power to make protection amulets, we would still have Tupac and Biggie.
That's true. I was gonna say, if you're gonna send it to anybody, I would send it to Beyonce.
that we know of that they're dead. Maybe they used an amulet to fake their death.
That way they can earn the money on the royalties after the fact.
Exactly. Well, see, if you're gonna send an amulet to a pop star to do a magic amulet for you, wouldn't it be someone like, I don't know, the lady from Churches, or like maybe Janelle Monáe?
She would be good. It would be Janelle Monáe or Beyonce, nobody else.
Or Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, Stevie Nicks is a good one.
There are a number of people I would trust with magic amulets who are pop stars. Absolutely. If we're talking about non-female, non-rappers, there's people like Nick Cave and I don't know. There's a number of people who
Weird Al
that would have. Well, maybe, but I don't think it would work
I
very
produced
well
this juju bag for you!
And remember Yoda in chat says he would do it with Snoop. He sent it to Snoop.
Okay, stop. I want to see that episode of Snoop Dogg and Martha, where they both have to make protection amulets from hair.
From each other's hair! Oh, that would be adorable!
See, Martha would make the best amulet, but Snoop's would have the most raw power in it.
Correct.
Clearly. Yes. I don't trust Martha. See, Martha is a black magician, and Snoop is a white magician. So he does he does only good in the world. But she
what I would suspect is that the Martha amulet would ensure that you would always have a good dinner party.
Would it though? I don't know if I've never trusted that Martha.
No, that's why it's specifically it would always make sure your dinner party was a success. Specifically your dinner party. Everything else can go to shit, but your dinner party successful.
Right. So it's useless against icing. It will help you. It would help you arrange flowers to protect yourself.
Apparently.
Yes.
Banks said that. Wait. Banks said that Jack Dorsey promised to promote her mixtape Slazy in exchange for her promoting his cash transfer app Square and for her crafting him a magical object that might protect him from ISIS, which had threatened him in a video earlier that year.
Yeah, so this, apparently, that's real, that ISIS threatened Jack Dorsey, which I guess sort of makes sense in that he's a wealthy and powerful guy. I don't know why they focus him. I feel like we only started learning about Jack Dorsey because Twitter degenerated into a Nazi hellscape and everyone started...
And he would do nothing about it unless, somebody insulted him directly.
No. He intervened in a few cases to protect Nazis.
Yeah, right, yes, that's true.
That too. But that was the only reason I'd even heard of Jack Dorsey. I didn't know who was in charge of Twitter until that thing started.
Oh wait,
he's not like Elon Musk or
clarify
Jeff Bezos.
The article, at least the one we're going off of, is spin.com, written by Toasted Burks.
Oh yes, that's right.
And then the source is Vanity Fair's Nick Bilton, who actually dropped it in a weird bombshell.
Now, Azalea Banks was also the one who apparently was flown out to Elon Musk's mansion to do something to spend some time with him and Grimes, and then found it abandoned.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Well, that at least makes
just
sense.
Left there.
Because...
to wander the halls.
Yeah.
Like the protagonist in a gothic novel.
Yeah.
Right.
With just a note instructing her that she may go and use all the rooms, but not open the blue door.
The one at the
and that was the reason why Azalea Banks stopped liking Grimes, because they pulled that weird shit on her.
Elon Musk can't be expected to keep track of all of his mansions and which pop stars are in which. Come on, people, be reasonable. I know that I've often had...
Hear me out, and I think this can explain why this definitely would cause a rift between Banks and Grimes. Imagine someone like Elon Musk invites you out to, I believe it's a private island.
Okay.
You go there into a mansion, and no one's there.
And it's completely empty.
Is your first thought not that this is a dangerous game situation? That you have been brought out here to either be put through some sort of Arcade from X-Men-esque death trap house, or to be hunted for the sport?
And mind you, Azalea Banks is black, and Elon Musk and Grimes aren't. I don't know what they are specifically.
Musk is literally a South African diamond mogul heir, so...
Exactly. Yeah, so it's just kind of like, you don't do that shit.
This is the start of an Eli Roth movie.
To be there's a recording that drops down and a voice says, and she's with like 10 other pop stars and they're all found guilty
Holy
and killed
fuck,
off in thematically
Adam,
appropriate ways.
We said this as joke. This would be a great fucking plot for a movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Agatha Christie already did it, technically speaking. But yeah, you
specifically
had the
with pop stars?
Yeah.
Specifically female pop stars.
And celebrities, yeah.
Who aren't white.
Also,
Specifically female pop stars and celebrities who are not white.
Yeah. Well, no, it's all about...
And they're all invited by their quote-unquote friend who is white.
Well, that is the case.
Yeah.
To be sure. To be fair, I'm not 100% clear that... It says Grimes wasn't there. It doesn't say Elon Musk wasn't there. Maybe she was hanging with Elon Musk.
No, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't there. Because she didn't say anything about him being there. She kind of made it sound like she was literally just sitting around awkwardly left waiting.
Well, to be fair, if you have to be somewhere, Elon Musk's house is really not a bad place to be, waiting around. I'd crash at Elon Musk's house. Believe me, I wouldn't say no to that. But she's got
I would, specifically for the reason we just said, Adam. Have you not been paying attention?
Not to mention, it's a mansion, which means it's fucking huge. That's a lot worse than being in, like, a tiny-ass apartment.
Yeah.
They were there the whole time, they just never found each other. They were wandering through the entire labyrinth.
Again, this has turned into a Jane Austen novel.
For 3 days, and nobody could find the kitchen to eat.
Yeah.
And thus they starved to death.
And even though there's like 3 kitchens in this giant mansion because reasons.
Yeah. Vanilla Ice stumbles out with, like, beer, and he's like, "What year is it outside? I haven't seen the sunlight in days."
Oh my god, she just goes to use the bathroom, and there's Biggie Smalls as the bathroom valet there.
Yeah,
While you've always been the caretaker, ma'am.
And this is all sounding disturbingly plausible because it is.
Yeah.
He's like, his latest invention will be powered by the souls.
His latest invention, the Overlook Hotel.
Exactly. He saw Ready Player One a few too many times, and he decided that was going to be the basis for his new Hellraiser-esque device that traps celebrities and harnesses their power. And it's, to be fair, it's a sustainable form of energy production. So, hey, maybe it's worth it, the trade-off there. Anyway. Okay, I think we may need to wrap this up. Thanks for tuning in. I did want to mention that we do have a website that as well as an RSS feed, as was mentioned earlier by Ing. It's at destroy-all-clickbait.pinecast, as in the tree, .co. So you can go there and you can see all of different shows are archived. And we also have an RSS feed, which means you can get us on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. So we are available on all the platforms now, which is really, really cool, I think. So hopefully people will check that out, and please do check it out. You can subscribe to all of our Patreons. We'll provide the links, again, at that website. And if you go there, if you subscribe to our Patreons, you can hear this show early. Plus you get all kinds of extra cool stuff. Any one of our 3 Patreons, but why not subscribe to all 3 of ours? Because we're all cool people and we like money. It tastes delicious. I want to thank, again, Jack Feerick for the theme song. It is the holidays, so we'll say happy holidays, and I'm sure there's going to be at least a week off in here somewhere by the time this gets broadcast for the new year. Any other final business as we're wrapping up? Anyone want to mention anything? Anything to promote?
No.
Not yet. I should have something soon, though.
Ooh, maybe. The only thing I can mention is that maybe I'll get over my seasonal depression, but we'll see.
So watch for Abby to get over her seasonal depression.
Yeah, that's one of the higher tier Patreon rewards.
Yeah, right. Give her $1 million and she will get over her.
Actually, I might, because then I just wouldn't have as many debts.
Exactly. And just, and a reminder that we do try to broadcast live on Twitch on Tuesdays around 6 or 6:30, so follow us on Twitter at Prankster36, Aviviave, And Dammit, one of the three of us, will always be putting up the links to everything relevant, as well as the new podcast. So from everyone here in the Digital Underground, have a as happy as possible 2018 as it fades into the new year, and hopefully Blade Runner year 2019 will be better for all of us.
Maybe.
Take care, dodge that clickbait, and we'll see you next time, guys.
And again, remember, Masper caskets.
Masper caskets. People are dying to use them.
Happy holidays, everyone.